You folks asked for it and we're gonna give it to you. Today, we're gonna talk about some of the vocabulary and jargon associated with the Bambara boxing system, so you can understand every single one of my lessons and you can apply the tactics I teach when you fight. Assisting me with today's lesson is gonna be Tri-State Golden Glove champion, Tristan. Positionally, when we're talking about stance, the side of your body that your feet are open to is referred to as your open side. The side of your body that your feet are closed to is called your closed side. If you're a right-handed orthodox fighter, your open side is your right, your closed side is your left. While certain situations may call for a more bladed or a more square stance, if your feet are in a line, you are too bladed and you're vulnerable to shots over your left shoulder. And if you're very square, if you're very broad and wide in front of somebody, you can't move in and out well and your center line is exposed. Bladed and square isn't just a reflection of your stance, it's a reflection of your stance in relation to the position of your opponent. If your opponent moves to your closed side, you may end up too bladed. If your opponent moves to your open side and you don't adjust, you may end up too square. Boxing takes place at 3 different distances, different ranges of the fight. When you're on the outside, it's called the outside because you're out of a range that you can get hit with anything without your opponent stepping in first. When you're in the middle distance, that means that you are in range to get hit without your opponent having to step, without them having to dress up an entry. So this means even if you're just in range to be hit with a jab, you are in the middle distance. And the inside distance is when you are physically touching somebody. You can get inside of their punches. Somebody throws a 4 at you, you don't have to go away from it. You can get inside of the path of that shot to keep yourself safe. Compounding reach is the idea that your reach is the longest directly off the line of your shoulder. And if you're punching up or punching down, you're shortening your functional reach. You can maximize your reach by putting the thing you're hitting level with your shoulder, and you can minimize your opponent's reach by being above or below their shoulder. A lane is a step left or right, a step laterally while still facing the same cardinal direction. We use lanes to differentiate positions when standing in front of an opponent. There are 5 different lanes: the open, cross, center, jab, and closed lanes. And then there are 2 different levels that also occupy those lanes, which give you 10 different spaces that your head can occupy. Lane theory is the idea that in each of these spaces you have a different set of risks, things to worry about, and attacks that you can employ safely. The goal of a lane is to put something on the side of you, whereas an angle has you orbiting around a central point. A deep angle is past the person's elbow, usually 90 degrees, and you would want to attack the person's center line following this. Whereas a short angle is more close to 45 degrees, you're still clearing your opponent's jab or cross lane, and you are still attacking center line following this position. The term elbow side changes depending on what punch the person is throwing. If they're throwing with their lead hand, elbow side will be on their closed side. If they're throwing with their rear hand, elbow side will be on their open side. But elbow side means that you're not pincered between both of their hands to attack, and they can only attack you from the far side. If you're constantly slipping and defending towards somebody's center line, not getting elbow side, this is called being on line. You're standing in front of this person, you're pincered between their hands, and this is a really risky place to be. Rhythm is the pace that we execute our techniques at as we fight. This can be head movement, this can be offense, or this can be footwork. This can be done with feints. You can use any technique to occupy these beats. A consistent rhythm is easy to defend, but is pivotal for setting somebody up for a change-up so that you can hit them when you mix up rhythm with a half beat or a long beat. Layering in your defense means you're not just defending on one technique to defend you. It means when you're moving your head, you're bringing your guard along for the ride in case something happens fast on the half beat or in case you misread a situation. It could also mean while moving your head or hiding behind your guard, you're using your feet so that you're constantly changing position and looking for an exit or a dominant place to attack from. Ideally, you're never just depending on any one line of defense. You've always got several layers that somebody will have to peel back if they want to hit you in one of your vital targets. Pressure in boxing refers to your ability to threaten and make somebody yield ground for your ability to chew up ground beneath you. Now, you don't just pressure by throwing a huge volume of punches. I've always heard you pressure by position and you pressure by presence. You want to be threatening, you want to be right at the edge of this person's range, and you want to be obstructive. You want to cut them off, not get caught chasing them. In contrast to pressuring, the term being cagey in boxing refers to being exchange avoidant. You're moving your feet, you're feinting, you're using your jab and your parries and frames to not let somebody even get into an extended exchange with you. You're always circling away from the ropes and the turnbuckles, and you're moving toward open space to try to slow things down and break your opponent's momentum. When coach talks about linear and round attacks, usually what I'm referring to if we're fighting on the line, linear attacks are attacking between somebody's hands, up their center line, and round attacks are looping around their guard. And the point of pairing these attacks is to drag somebody's defenses in tight so you can squeeze the shot around, or spread somebody's defenses thin so you can shoot a shot between. Framing is a term that means using a part of your body to stop somebody from returning to stance or returning to posture. Whether you're using your hand, your forearm, your shoulder, your head, or anything else you can think of, your frame keeps this person out of position and either allows you to set up some offense or allows you to safely exit while they try to recover stance. Traffic is a term that covers any tool, any obstruction that blocks the path of a punch. This can literally be a block, or it can be a parry. It can be a leverage block using your whole arm, your shoulder, your far side hand. You have lots of options here, but it's something obstructing the nice, clean, linear path of that shot getting to your face or body. Same side returns in boxing mean that you are countering from the same side you just defended from. I remember when I first learned this concept, it revolutionized my boxing game. It made my counters much higher percentage and got me hit way less. A catch and pitch is an example of a same side return. I usually use the term catch and pitch to mean a block and then a punch with the blocking arm. Some coaches use this to mean a parry and then a punch off of the parrying arm. When somebody says you have fat punches or you have a lot of fat on your punches, that means that you're throwing looping, wide, telegraphed shots, as opposed to throwing tight, compact shots that come right off your chin and go straight to the target with very little tell. Carnival boxing is a term you hear me use a lot on our channel. Carnival boxing refers to somebody who can make people miss big. It's like a show. When you see me doing defense rounds out in Burlington or in Philly as we travel around, this is carnival boxing. I don't need to risk making somebody barely miss so that I can hit them back. I can make them miss big, I can be big and athletic, and this is the reason why it's called carnival boxing. These guys belong in the circus, okay? The hardest part about boxing is making somebody barely miss while being there to hit them back. That's what wins fights. That's what allows you to make them miss and make them pay. If you're making somebody miss by a mile, not only is that not efficient, but you're denying yourself the opportunity to counter and to build some offense off of that vulnerability your opponent has presented. Let us know in the comments section if there's anything we missed, if you have any other questions or discrepancies that you've run into with this vocab in your boxing training yourself, and hopefully you can keep training hard, keep following along with our videos clearly so that you can have success when you fight.